Morning, everybody. In case you can't tell, I am suffering from a little bit of a cold. I just had the most amazing trip. There will be a video about that. If it has not already been posted, it should be coming out soon. But just went to India recently for my cousin's wedding, and I just got back from India literally yesterday. So I am struggling hard right now between my allergies as well as my lack of sleep and the fact that I may or may not, sorry, my cat distracted me, may or may not be coming down with an actual cold. So that being said, we're going to drink some coffee because it is 11 o'clock in the morning here and I can no longer sleep. Oh, that shit's good. So we just got this new flavor of coffee from Nespresso, and it's the white chocolate strawberry. So good. So good. Hits the spot. And I added a little bit of sugar-free vanilla sweetener to it. Excellent. But one thing that I can say remains true regardless of where I am in the world is my obsession with reading. For those of you that are new here, welcome. Thank you for being here today. My name is Jaya. I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday on all bookish related content with a little sprinkling of randomness here and there. For those of you that are returning, thank you so much for being here. It means the world to me that you guys are here supporting this channel and supporting this reading obsession, because I need someone out in the world to justify my ridiculousness when it comes to accumulating as well as physically reading the books that I own. That being said, I also want to just mention that there's nothing wrong with renting. There's nothing wrong with libraries. They're beautiful, beautiful things. The Libby app is absolutely wonderful. Kindle Unlimited, if you prefer subscription plans, are great. I'm just a weirdo. I like having the beautiful books on my shelves. I love the aesthetic of it. And I also love the fact that as I finish them, there's a physical trophy on my shelf. Without further ado, though, let's talk about this. Oh, what I was saying is no matter where I am in the world, I will be reading. So today's video is going to be a series review on the Jack the Ripper series by Carrie Maniscalco. For those that don't know, Carrie Maniscalco is a young adult author. She's also now venturing into adult novels as well. She's the one who wrote Kingdom of the Wicked series, which is one of my all-time favorite series ever. It is an amazing, amazing, amazing series about a woman who is on the path for revenge, trying to figure out who killed her twin sister, and happens to have the King of Wrath, or a demon, under her power in order to successfully figure out what happened in all the realms. It was such a good series. I loved those books. I literally finished all 3 books in 24 hours. I did not do anything but read. I had literally just quit my job in Austin. I was transitioning to my new job where I live now, and oh my God, like sat down and binge read those books. It was absolutely incredible. So then I decided to read the adult series that she wrote, which is The Princes of Sin, and Throne of Secrets and Throne of the Fallen are the 2 that have been released so far. I was hungrily waiting for that next book in that series to be released this year, and I literally finished it within the span of a day and a half. It was so good. And so then I was like, these books have been sitting on my shelf for quite some time now, and I was like, it's about time that we actually read them, especially because I know I love this author. And this is more of a gothic situation happening. So let's talk a little bit about these books. Hi, baby. Hey, boop. Schmoopsh. This is Taquito. Say hi, Taco. This is my little Minerva Taco. She's named after Professor McGonagall because doesn't she look like Professor McGonagall when she transforms? Yes. And she's also the little beauty queen. She's also named Taco because we have another cat named Bella Luna, who we call Bella. And my husband and my sister-in-law thought it would be amazing to have mini Taco Bells running around. And so that's what we have. She now responds primarily to Taco. And she is having a major, major moment of the lovey-doveys because she's just happy that I'm home. Not right, little baby. This has been very needy. Yes, princess. There you go. I'm gonna let you down. So, coming back to this is based on Gothic historic events that actually happened. You're basically following the story of a female and a male character who are basically playing detectives, your Watson and your Sherlock Holmes, if you will, vibes. And they're on a committed goal to discover who is committing all these gruesome murders, and various situations occur throughout these stories that are, you know, rooted in historical time periods. So this book is also really interesting because it's about a female who is kind of in a world where society is still a man's world. Women don't have that many rights. They're kind of expected to just get married and that's about it. And so she's a very unique character as well because her uncle is one of the foremost front doctors in all of London, and he is a forensic scientist. And so he has been teaching his niece how to do autopsies and how to speak with quote unquote the dead, if you will. And her entire career goal is to become one of the best forensics out there, and she really, really enjoys her job, and she really, really enjoys, you know, working on these corpses to try to figure out what caused their death. Now, the whole history behind that and her appreciation of the gruesome comes from the fact that her mother died at a very young age. She struggled with an infection and passed away. And so both she and her brother have a little bit of fascination with the sciences. Her brother, however, is more of a gentleman in society. He's very, very close to his sister. She and him work very closely together in many, many scenes of the book, not necessarily to solve a crime, but just to show the closeness between the two siblings. Our main female character's name is Audrey Rose, as depicted here on the front cover of this book. I love the fact that she is a very powerful female character set in a time period where women are not respected as scientists or working class women, people of intelligence, if you will. They're kind of seen as, you know, wallflowers that are meant to be at the home, run the household, get married, look pretty. And while the rest of her colleagues are kind of doing that in society, she's at the forefront of science, digging into the cavities of human beings and trying to figure out what caused their murder. She is 100% also into the beautiful dresses and the fashion and the balls and all that kind of stuff, which makes her, I think, the perfect blend of female as well as scientist. And I just love that about her. Her partner in crime, Thomas Cresswell, who's also introduced in this book and happens to be the love interest throughout the series, is also a very well-written male character. I think he has a strong understanding of equality and he cares a lot about Audrey Rose. Their relationship as it grows is very interesting to see. They obviously are introduced through the apprenticeship underneath her uncle, who happens to be the stalwart in his field and is very well respected as being a forefront scientist in Europe. It's also really interesting to see how during the time of grave robbers and medicine still being a questionable thing, he is sitting there trying to work on organ transplants and, you know, advanced medicine as a whole. So I think the characters in this book are very, very powerful, and that kind of sets the stage for the rest of the novel. I think it was also interesting to see her father and how he you know, is dealing with grief and how he just wants to put her in this protective bubble and make sure that nothing happens to her. And her brother is kind of on the same team as her father, trying to protect her and keep her safe while still respecting her freedom. It's a very interesting book, and I think, like, in general, it captures that time period very well and also gives us a fun little story to read as they go through their journey of trying to figure out who Jack the Ripper is and why millions of women are dying and how the police seem to not be taking it seriously because it's a bunch of women. This book was a solid 3-star read for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Moving forward, there are some spoilers that I have to reveal in order to tie the series together. So if you do want to jump off now, let me just give you a quick synopsis of the rest of the series, and then I'll let you know when to get off for the spoilers. For Hunting Prince Dracula, which is the second book in the series, this one, like I said, was a solid 3-star read, but only because I found the end a little predictable. Hunting Prince Dracula was also excellent, set in Romania, set in a academic setting, very dark academia vibes, but also has a little bit of that Transylvania Dracula vibe to it too. Again, very well written, very, very entertaining. This one I think wasn't as predictable. I think somewhere along the book, around 3/4 of the way through, I could kind of figure out who the murderer was going to be, so that made it a little bit slow for me, but I did overall enjoy this book thoroughly, and I really enjoyed watching the relationship of the two main characters blossom and grow throughout this book, and their respect for one another increase as well. Again, a solid 3-star read. And then we have Escaping from Houdini, which I thought was beautifully done. You also have the introduction of a secondary male character who is vying for our main female's heart. You have magic tricks galore, murder that's being presented in very unique and crazy ways, and a lot more intrigue. This one wasn't as predictable for me, and so I really, really enjoyed this one. This one was a solid 4 to 4.5 stars for me, and I absolutely was obsessed with this book. And then Capturing the Devil, I think, was a great way to kind of finish off the series. I've also read Devil in the White City by another author, and I loved that book. I loved that setting in Chicago with like the beautiful white city and like the crazy murders that are taking place in that, and its ties of similarities to almost Jack the Ripper, the way that it was described. So I think that being our final main villain in this book and that being captured into this timeline was beautifully done. I also love the finale of the love story between our main male lead and female lead in this book, and the journey was so interesting to me. So this book was also a solid 4.5 star read for me. Outside of that, there's also a little novella that was done for this series, and it's called Becoming the Dark Prince. It was basically written in order for us to be able to see the main character before he becomes, you know, like the... Hold on one second, guys. I'm trying to figure out if I can get us to the cover. There we go. I absolutely thought this book was very well done. I think this book was just absolutely excellent, and I definitely loved it. It allows us to kind of see the vibes of Thomas Cresswell and what he's thinking and going throughout the entirety of the series, and it kind of gives us his feelings on the plot of another male basically vying for Audrey Rose's hand. And it was so cute to read all of his emotional struggles in that, as well as the crazy things that happened in that book. And I absolutely loved this book as well. This little novella, I think, took me about an hour to finish. It's only 66 pages, but it was so good. And I gave this one a 5 star because I love Thomas Cresswell. So again, overall, I would give the series a solid, 4 stars. I do think it's worth reading. I think Carrie Maniscalco knows how to write to her audience, and she does a phenomenal job. At this point, there will be spoilers, so I strongly recommend jumping off if you have not read the series or you are interested. Again, there will be spoilers moving forward. So please, please, please consider jumping off if this is all you wanted to see. Moving into those spoilers. So I think in this one, knowing that her brother is the one who is Jack the Ripper was kind of predictable, like the way that Nathaniel's kind of introduced in the book, the way he relates to the bodies, the way he relates to the science, the way he wants to like protect her, but has those moments of being seen as kind of like a control freak or like making decisions that she feels are not fair to her, was very telling of the fact that he does have a little bit of that control freak mindset. She also talks about how he also had a little bit of an apprenticeship / relationship with her father and her uncle before her mother passed away in the world of science and engineering. So the idea of him trying to bring his mother back was not a surprise to me. I did love the fact that even in the crazed throes of his insanity when he's trying to revive their mom at the end of the book, he still has love for his sister. So that was really beautiful to read. And I think it was a perfect setting going into the next book, kind of showcasing the emotional trauma she's gone through from that experience in order to better set the stage for Hunting Prince Dracula. I did also love how supportive Thomas was through the entire sequence of this book, and how you could slowly see him begrudgingly starting to fall for Audrey Rose. I think that was really sweet to see, and again, vice versa. In Hunting Prince Dracula, I think it was really nice to see the father change after he had been so authoritative and almost aggressively protective of Audrey Rose while also holding her at, hand's length. I think it was nice to see that he understood the amount of emotional trauma that was left behind on his children, and that he's not allowed to grieve on his own, that he has to realize they're independent people as well. And it was really nice to see him come to the conclusion on his own that, it's appropriate for his daughter to continue pursuing these sciences, especially when she's so talented in it. And I think it was really telling to see what kind of family she comes from that allows her to think so freely when her father agrees to allow Thomas and her aunt to escort her to the academy in Transylvania, Romania, basically. I thought it was really interesting in this book, learning about Thomas's history, finding out that he's actually part of the Romanian lineage and he is a prince in his own rights. I think that was really fun to read. I loved the introduction of Dossie, the sister. I think she was really fun to read. Daciana was so entertaining, and I loved her relationship with Ileana, as well as the secret society stuff that was going on in this book. I also thought the ward was really interesting. Anastasia, I think, was a very fascinating character, and I think you can see where her mind might have been warped by being stuck in these morbid classes all the time, but also not being allowed the freedom to kind of explore her own life. The main headmaster, I think, was very classic Snape vibes, angry, irritated, but actually a good person at heart. So that was fun to read. But I think the best part of this book is the fact that the PTSD is done well. I think Audrey Rose's PTSD from seeing her brother do the things that he does and from realizing that he's like, you know, the Jack the Ripper was very powerful and moving in this book. I think it was also really interesting to see Audrey have this obsession with the morbid and science and wanting to solve these murders of these bodies that are showing up blood drained. But it was also really interesting to see at the same time that she, you know, is dealing with the fact that being near these bodies is giving her a lot of anxiety after watching what happened with her brother happen. And I just think that the relationship between Thomas and Audrey was very, very well written in this book too, where you can see that he's trying not to overstep that boundary of being a friend and a protector and almost like a captor to respecting her and giving her the space to heal that she needs. I also like the fact that she had no shame in standing up for herself and kind of, you know, saying that, hey, yes, I have feelings for you and yes, I'm interested in you, but at the same time, I am still a scientist in my own right. I am still strong in my own right, and I deserve the right to prove myself. I think that was really cool. I also love the fact that the book was kind of steeped in this history and, you know, fiction of Prince Dracula. And I just love the fact that in all of these books, Carrie does such a good job of speaking to that time period and pulling from those haunting legends and tales or even historical moments in our past. And so I think overall this book was very well done. And I loved the little tidbits on the reign of history of terror that Radu provides as well. So overall, just a very, very well written book. And so again, 3 stars, because I did think the murderer was a little predictable with who it was at the end. Since that particular character does not show up later on in any of the series or play a major role, I'm not going to reveal who it was. So there's still a little bit of intrigue there if you did choose to continue reading this series. But overall, love this book. Did give it a solid 3 stars. Would recommend. Next up, my favorite book in this series, Escaping from Houdini. It was so good. So obviously the apprenticeship happened. They don't quite make it into the academy, but they are thanked for all of their efforts and for solving the murders that are occurring. Meanwhile, her uncle has been requested to come to America in order to, you know, be a part of the medical team there and solve some mysteries, as well as continue the education in her autopsy career. And so we have Thomas Cresswell, Miss Audrey Rose, and Mr. Wadsworth on their way to America. And on the way, of course, they are watching the show put on by Mephistopheles and his crew, also showcasing Houdini. They're also trying to locate Lisa. I love the fact that Lisa goes from being this quiet kind of wallflower character who always has a mind, a brain of her own, this like love for romance and this passion, and has a lot of like emotional intelligence, but has always been kind of like that standard English woman. And now you see her off on her own adventure, and you get to kind of see how these two women really do belong in English society, and they're raised to fit in with English society, but at the same time are very, very powerful and emotional in their own right. And I love seeing that for both of them. I think this book was very well done. Not a single second did I suspect who the murderer was, because it's so separate from the rest of the book. I also love the way that the book ended, and it sets the stage for an additional murder having taken place on the ship, and this idea that they've now brought someone who kills just like the Jack the Ripper cases into the world of America. I also love the love interest. Oh my gosh, the banter is so good. And I love seeing Thomas and Audrey kind of fight for their romance. I like having another man show interest in Audrey and having her have this experience of realizing what other, opportunities in life could afford and what other directions she could take. I like the fact that she's, contemplating this idea of running away with the circus. Like, how many of us have not done that? And the intrigue and mystique of being married to a man who also in his own way deals in manipulations and trickery using simple sciences and deduction. And I just love the fact that he also appreciates her for her brain, as damaged as Mephistopheles is. I just think that overall this book was so well done, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. That's all I'm going to say about it, just because it's so good and I think it deserves to be read. But this was a solid 4.5 stars for me. I am obsessed with this book, would strongly recommend. Then after that, we have none other than the novella Becoming the Dark Prince. Now, this book in its own right was so good. I loved reading about Thomas. I loved seeing his reaction to this idea that there might be another man in her life and like how to navigate that, giving her the freedom and the space to kind of discover what her heart wants, but also figuring out like what is enough and what is too much in terms of fighting for her love. I also absolutely adored the fact that in this book, she has obviously gotten injured at this point, because at the end of Houdini, she obviously almost allows her own death in order to protect him. And I love seeing that intense, crazed side of him as he has to lock down all his feelings to save the woman that he loves. And I loved seeing that. I loved seeing like kicking and screaming how much he wanted to protect her and how he had to go into that dark, cold place of himself. And I loved the resolution of this book, like when he realizes that he needs to fight for his love and he is going to go back for Audrey Rose, especially in that tantalizing moment at the end of Escaping from Houdini, where you're concerned, are they going to make it? Are they not going to make it? Is he going to leave? Is he going to stay? And I love seeing that scene from his perspective as well as their movement into America. I love the letter he writes at the end of the book asking for her hand in marriage and the official right to court her. That was just so beautifully written. And overall, I just love this little novella. It was so good. This was a 5-star novella for me. And then last but not least, we have Capturing the Devil. Now, in Capturing the Devil, I loved the fact that it had the 2 parts. The first part being New York, where they're discovering these bodies of young women who are, striving to have individualized careers that are showing up, mutilated and dead, and no one is taking them seriously, even though they believe it's Jack the Ripper. I like the fact that we're bringing Nathaniel back into the fold and that she has access to his journals. I like the fact that even though it's dark, that PTSD is showing up in a dreamlike form for her, and she's like continuing to grow past the darkness in her life. The romance, the forbidden romance, the trysts that happen between the two of them, the stopped marriage. Oh my gosh, so much insanity in their relationship, and I loved that. I was there for that drama. But my favorite part of this book was definitely the Devil in the White City component, because I've read The Devil in the White City and we've studied that piece of history in high school and things like that. And so seeing that brought to life in a fictional format in this book was so great. I loved her escape at the end. I loved how he ends up capturing her. I love that she sees the incinerator, the room where he kept all of these young women, and how he seemed like this harmless man, but he was actually truly an evil, devious manipulator. Like, just overall done so well. And I just think it was excellent the way that the entire series was tied together at the end, and the daring save at the end when Thomas finds her, escaping from the dungeon and is there for her and is like, everything is nullified and we're safe to get married now. And we end the book with them becoming a married couple. Like, it was just such a beautiful ending to such an amazing storyline. I don't know if you can see how hard I'm cheesing right now, but that should give you an idea on how much I loved this series. This was a solid 4.5 for me as well. Overall, I would say the series as a whole is a 4-star read. I just think it's done so well for a gothic historical mystery series, and I would strongly recommend it. And I just, again, can only say I love Carrie Maniscalco's writing. There's a little bit more explicit scenes in the 4th book in terms of their romance, but even that is a little bit more closed door. I would say if you've read Kingdom of the Wicked, that is a lot more explicit. That was like, whoa, okay, then. This series is not quite like that. You're not going to get that much intimacy, but I do love the banter in this series. I do love the romance in this series. Books 1, 2, and 3, I would say, are like a quarter chilly,
worth of spice. And then the fourth book finally in this book is probably like, you know, a 1.5 star chili. There isn't too much in terms of explicit spice. So if that's something that's of a concern to you, just wanted to throw that in there too. Anyways, that brings me to the conclusion of this video. I sincerely hope you guys enjoyed this review of Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I loved this series, would strongly recommend for others, and definitely think it's something you guys should consider if you haven't read it. If you have read it, please leave comments below on your thoughts on the series, if you guys enjoyed it as well, if you like Carrie Maniscalco's writing, if you're waiting for the next book, even though the last one just arrived, already waiting for the next one to be released, because I am sitting here with bated breath for the next in the Prince of Sin series, guys. Waiting. Once again, thank you so much for watching. For those of you that are new here, I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday on mostly bookish related content with a little bit of randomness here and there. For those of you that are returning, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate creating this reading community with you. It means all the world to me, and I can't wait to continue sharing more as I travel along this reading journey. Until next time, bye guys.